Do you love someone struggling with an addiction? Have you felt like it's your fault? Are you exhausted from sleepless nights, from being lied to and manipulated? And are you frustrated from arguing and fighting with this person when you're only trying to help? Well, it's time for you to step off the addiction roller coaster for good and learn a solution that works. Join addiction experts, hosts of the popular podcast, The Addiction Solution, and authors of The Freedom Model for Addictions, Mark Sharon and Michelle Dunbar, to learn a solution that will provide you and your loved one freedom from the addiction battle for good. It's called Families Moving Past Addiction Masterclass, and it's a 3-hour live online exclusive event where you'll hear information about addiction we guarantee you've never heard before, and that's great news. If you love someone struggling with an addiction, then this masterclass is for you. For more information or to enroll, click the link provided and register soon for the date that works for you, because each class will be limited to just 50 participants so we can best serve you. Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sharon and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Addiction Solution
Podcast.
I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sharon, and we co-wrote with Stephen Slate, our colleague, The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap.
And
yes.
The Freedom Model for the Family.
Yeah, that's right. And right now you can get the book for free, and you can also order the workbook, which we've never had in the past, open to the public. That was just something for our coaching. So if you want that, go to the link tree and click on free book offer.
Free book offer. Now, you probably heard in the commercial just before this, unless you fast forwarded over it, which was cool because I'm going to tell you about it anyways. We're starting a new offer for help for families. And it's something that we've done in the past, where I used to do these 2-day family workshops where families would fly in from all over the country and work with me for 2 full days on a crash course in the Freedom Model and how they can, by viewing addiction differently, by viewing it as what it truly is, by learning the research, how they can provide more help and support, more effective communication with their loved one.
That's right.
And, who might be still struggling. And it's also great for if you are doing the Freedom Model and you have family steeped in 12-step, or maybe they don't know much at all, but they're just wondering why you're not going to meetings anymore. They're wondering what you're doing. It's not a 2-day thing anymore. This is going to be just a 3-hour webinar, live webinar event, where Mark and I will be, giving lessons.
Yeah, we'll teach the family how to improve relationships, how to deal with somebody that's still getting high, how to deal with getting them a solution, teaching them that addiction isn't a disease and why that is.
And it's not progressive and incurable. So you're not a ticking time bomb like they've been led to believe.
I mean, all the mythology, we're going to cover all the main ones.
Yeah.
And because here's the deal. If a family knows that it's a hopeful situation and they have that knowledge, it lowers the panic and good decisions can be made.
Yes.
And what treatment does is it heightens the panic and fear level to a crescendo. And then families tend to just throw dollars at the problem, and the person then gets caught in the treatment and recovery trap. So we want to pull them out of that by calming the situation with facts, good research, our 34 years of experience, which is vast and massive, and really help families solve this.
Well, and a lot of times too, the treatment industry and 12-step programs actually harm relationships and push people apart. There tends to be this
Divide and conquer.
yeah, well, and people just the trying to control each other factor becomes overwhelming in a relationship, and it can become abusive, on both sides. So we want to, by dispelling all that misinformation, it actually, like Mark said, it takes the panic level down, and it just gives people a different perspective, which can help them make really sound decisions.
Yeah, a solution.
Yep. So, but what we're going to talk about today, we still have this handy dandy list from you great fans. And I took off my glasses, so let me put them back on. This is a great question, and we get this a lot, even when understanding.
It's really common.
Yeah, even when understanding the freedom model. Is it normal to revert back to old behaviors such as heavy substance use occasionally?
So the answer is it happens. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's
And
extremely common.
yeah, I would say, especially in the beginning.
Yep.
So what we're talking about here is the difference between an intellectual understanding of something and an emotional understanding coupled with the intellectual understanding.
And a real change in preference.
Right. But I don't think the change in preference can happen without an emotional understanding.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
Something so let me explain something about humans. So our beliefs drive our emotions. So our intellect, in other words, what we think about a situation is going to frame out how we feel about that situation. And this is something that a lot of people don't know because they assume that they are just run by their emotions willy-nilly, and what they feel is real. And they don't understand that it's belief-based. Let me give you an example. If you have a relationship with somebody that's abusive, you could still believe that they love you, and maybe they don't, right? But your belief keeps you in that relationship. Meanwhile, you're being severely abused. And so your belief is they love me. Therefore, you have an emotional attachment to that person. Therefore, you stay, and it's worth the beatings.
Mm-hmm.
And you're lost. Obviously, there's something amiss in your belief system and the intellect side of it. The belief side of it, something's faulty there. And that is, you're not recognizing that this person really probably is more about control than love. I'm not saying that every relationship that's abusive is devoid of all love. But in this example, I'm trying to say that that's the case, that the person is just a very mean, narcissistic, abusive nightmare, right? Totally about control. And so your belief that John loves me drives an emotional reaction when you think about it and you say, I need his love and I feel it. And he maybe once in a while smiles at you. And so you grab a hold of that and maybe you have good sex and you hang on to that and you interpret all of this as the love. And then your life and this relationship ends up being catastrophic and sad and painful. Yet all of this, if you look at it, is run by the beliefs that you hold about that situation, accurate or inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have an emotional situation that develops from those beliefs. So always there are two things associated with human behavior, and that is an intellectual side, which is I get, this is my belief, this is what I understand about a situation, and then slowly over time you will build a preference or not a preference for that situation. And so when people say to me, I understand the freedom model, I've read it twice, and yet I still drink and drug, that just tells me you intellectually understand the material, which is the first part.
Yep.
but it hasn't switched over to knowing it enough that it becomes an emotional thing, because you need both, because humans make decisions based on emotions and their intellect in concert with each other. The positive drive principle tells us that if we don't see an emotional happiness motivation,
it's really great. Yeah.
you're not really going to move in the direction of what your intellect is telling you. You could say, yeah, I really shouldn't be drinking and drugging. And I know it's a choice and I know it's not a disease. And this is all intellect. This is belief. But that's the first stage. You need that. You need that. That's what the book provides.
Yes.
But the book can't make you feel an emotional attachment to, I prefer not drinking and drugging because I'll be happier. That second part is an inside job.
Yep.
Now, I'm sorry to keep talking.
No. This is good.
So what happens is sometimes, because the propaganda of alcohol and drugs is so profound and has been practiced for so long in the individual, let's say you, that you have a real emotional attachment to the mythology. So you read the book once, twice, you maybe watch some podcast and you're getting it. But the information isn't so profound yet that there's an emotional switch. And that is
a change in preference.
That's right. A happiness-based, beneficial-based switch in your intellect. So your intellect is saying, I shouldn't want to do this anymore. I get it. I mean, and we hear this all the time. But the amount of information sometimes that it requires for you to study to undo the propaganda beliefs and emotions that are associated with that may take a bit.
Well, I like, let's go back to the lover partner scenario, because you can, everybody's, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have had a very strong emotional relationship, right, with someone, and that you're not great together, but you've been together a long time, and so you leave the relationship, but you keep going back to the well every once in a while, right? Like, I think most people have a person like that, right? And you just know you're just not great together, but every once in a while you want to just go back to it and maybe remind yourself about, well, there was some good there, or maybe remind yourself, no, this isn't good anymore. So it's part of a learning process. It's part of the process of changing our preferences and realizing, I mean, I think look at, there's so much there. That's why I always call it, the layers. It's like an onion, right? So the more you learn, the different ways you experience things. And so each time, as long as you're mindful, each time you go back to the heavy use, you can really start to question it, like, how much do I really like this? So I think in some respects it's like an experimentation process. It's this also can go along with running that abstinence experiment, where, okay, I'm going to be abstinent for a period of time and I'm going to really see, am I happy or abstinent?
Well, I want to jump in there, because I've noticed on the group, for example, people mindlessly are doing the abstinence experiment. That's pointless.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
where you're just putting days together.
Yeah, you start counting days. That's recovery. That's recovery. That's completely a waste of your time. You haven't changed your preference. You don't have a motive to change your preference. You're not willing at that point, maybe or you just don't know. Maybe you just have a lack of knowledge as to be mindful of, am I going to be happier?
Well, like the first couple days that you quit a habit, it can feel in some respects like, okay, I'm depriving myself for the first little while. But look at it, you don't have to view it that way.
That's really important. That's
Okay.
really
You can
important.
view it like, okay, I'm going to run this experiment of not doing this behavior. Um, and really mindfully explore how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Am I feeling deprived? If I'm feeling deprived, why am I feeling deprived? Like, what do I feel like I'm missing out on? I mean, we talk about these things being, that's what being mindful is all about. And it's about, yeah, thinking, not that I want you to overanalyze things, but I want you to really chat when you're running the abstinence experiment. It's all about challenging yourself to being happier.
Yeah, yes, there's what people don't understand too is there's all this biochemistry crap that we hear constantly. It's so you're not run by your chemistry. Now we know that because people spontaneously, they call it spontaneous remission, spontaneously change.
Yep,
Now
all the time.
Now here's what's so wild. We have this term called spontaneous remission as if it's some rare phenomenon. Okay? We spontaneously change and evolve as human beings daily.
Yeah.
Daily.
In many different ways.
In many different ways with old habits. Billions and billions of times worldwide, globally. It's happening constantly where people say to themselves, I'm getting a divorce today. And they do. And they move on. And they do it in a day. They decide one day, I'm going to go get my driver's license, and they never look at their bicycle again. They look at somebody they've been in love with for 20 years, and they finally say, let's go out on a date. They
change their careers.
They stop drinking or drugging. They stop taking cocaine. This is really common because cocaine has a real high
99%.
Yeah.
Like total people solving that problem. It's
and I've heard it for 34 years. How many people like us did blow and then all of a sudden one day go, this is super expensive and stupid and I'm done with it.
Or smoking cigarettes.
Yep.
Smoking cigarettes. I mean, that the majority of people that quit just put it down and don't do it again.
Right. As an aggregate, it's the most commonly quit substance numbers wise in the world. So it doesn't have to be a process, but if the propaganda that you've believed, the benefit, the false benefits, the perceived benefits that aren't there, if you deeply believe in them, you have to be willing to say it's all bullshit. Now, the book goes through it, how it's all bullshit. But let's say that you've been a believer your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in an Irish family, Irish American family who are all heavy drinkers, all believe in the mythology deeply. Not every Irishman in that situation drinks. Many of them stop. Many of them one day stop. How do they do that? Well, they look at it and they go, that's fucking nonsense. The empirical evidence, the objective reality is their lives are fucking garbage.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying in this hypothetical situation. So, and then they just move on with their lives. They allow themselves to change. So one of the things you might have to do in the beginning when you're learning the freedom model and all this new information is say, would I be willing today to let go of my old beliefs? Am I even willing to do that? Or am I defending them inside myself?
Right.
That is important for you to ask yourself.
Hanging on to them because, I mean, when you're a kid and you believe in Santa Claus, right? I believed in Santa Claus.
This is good, yeah.
And I think I was about 7 years old and my sister was 5. I mean, I think we were like 7 and 5. And my dad, that's kind of young. My dad was wanted to tell us the truth about Santa Claus. And I was devastated. So much so that I held on to that belief. I did not want to believe him that Santa wasn't real and held on to it. I think until I was about 10 years old when other kids were talking about that there's no Santa. And because I had actually one night coming back from mass. We were coming back from mass on Christmas Eve, and I swore to God I heard sleigh bells. Like it was midnight mass, so it was the middle of the night, and I swore, and my mother kept saying, "You got to get to bed. Santa's going to be here any minute." And I heard sleigh bell. Like to this day, that is what I heard. Now, who the hell knows what I heard when I was a kid? But my belief was so strong because of my personal experience with hearing sleigh bells and thinking I saw Santa in the sky that that I that I held on to it even after there was so much evidence that it was my parents that were bringing the presents. You know what I mean? So look at I should have warned people if your kids are listening. but
Oh, that's true.
um so yeah, it's when you hang on to that mythology for so long and your personal experience seems to have reinforced it, but what you call that's like a selective remembrance.
I have this similar one. I grew up in a German family, so the Santa Claus.
If you're seeking a solution to your substance use problems that doesn't label you for life or make you go to daily meetings with strangers, and instead shows you how you can solve your problem and create the life you truly want, then you've come to the right place. The Freedom Model is for you. The Freedom Model program options allow you to continue to live your life, learn the Freedom Model on your schedule, and implement what you're learning immediately in your daily life. The Freedom Model online program consists of more than 20 hours of video lessons taught by Mark and me. There are 2 to 3 lessons per chapter to guide you through the Freedom Model text. We have also included our lessons, the mind and the brain, the binge construct, and life movements. You'll get digital copies of our book, our workbook, additional lessons and their worksheets, and our audiobook. Included with the online program is the Freedom Model for the Family online program and books, new Freedom Model quick lessons posted weekly, the Freedom Model monthly newsletter, the 12-step deprogramming seminar series, and a monthly 2-hour members-only live question and answer webinar with Mark and me. To enroll in the Freedom Model online program, go to online.thefreedommodel.org or click on the link.
Thing didn't make sense because we would open our presents on Christmas Eve, which
Oh,
is the German tradition. So for us, it was Saint Nicholas. It was a Catholic
right.
thing. So I kind of missed out on the Santa Claus thing. But here's what's interesting: I did it with the Easter Bunny. I remember. I don't know what age I was, but me and my sister went out on the trail system behind our house looking for the bunny, and I swear to God, it was so visceral. I remember thinking it was so exciting that we were going to
Yes.
find the Easter Bunny. And and I remember this. I can remember where we were going down on the sand trail, and I was like, we're going to see him. We're going to see him. And then I also knew that logically none of it made sense. So I had this really weird thing. And a drinking and drugging habit when you read the Freedom Model is a lot like that. Like you
Yes.
start reading and you know that the objective reality is that this has been a giant shit show for you.
Right. Right.
And it's been horribly dissatisfying, but at the same time satisfying. But when you learn that it's actually all in your head based on beliefs, and that the effect of booze or drugs, the physical effect, is really all you're getting out of this whole scene, it's a letdown.
It is a letdown.
It's a letdown. And you have to allow yourself to feel that and say, wow, I've imbued magic like I did when I went on the trail system to look for the Easter Bunny. I really felt him.
Yeah.
And then it slowly started to fade as we got back there. And that day I realized there was no Easter Bunny. And I was kind of let down. We got home and the magic was over.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
Yeah. But there's a freedom in getting older and not believing in the Easter Bunny, right? I mean, that has small consequences, but there's a huge freedom in not believing that heroin is a warm blanket for your emotions. That's such a radical propagandist thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a huge freedom in being able to create your own magic, so to speak, right?
Yes.
So
to be in control of your objective reality.
Yeah. So when I had my own children And I had to make a decision and like, are we going to do the whole Santa Claus Easter bunny thing? I'm like, yeah, we're going to do it. We like a lot of parents of our ages now. There was that question of, I'm not going to lie to my kids. I'm not going to teach them about magic that isn't there or whatever.
How sad.
I know. I thought, no, that was an important part of my life. Like understanding, like, not only is there a huge freedom in being able to create your own magic, but knowing that it is in your mind.
Yeah, that you have an imagination.
Yes.
Image, imagination, that you have imagery. And it's important to know that the magic is in building a business. Like, you imagine it, and then you
Yes.
build it. You imagine having a wonderful marriage, and then you make it happen by the work it takes necessary to do that. You have goals, you have objectives that you objective, right?
Yes.
Objective reality. So there's a reason why we have free will. There's a reason why we are driven by the pursuit of happiness. The question is, what are you piling your mental resources into? Mythology that's going to land flat and maybe painful and have huge trade-offs in the negative side? Or do you pick things that have maybe a more realistic look? Now, that's not to say that living in a fantasy world is necessarily a bad thing. It has a time and a place. In your bedroom with your wife or husband or whatever, just being an artist, right?
Right.
Being a writer, being
A musician.
entrepreneur. That this is where imagery and being creative and creating something out of nothing is how the world has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you honestly think, I mean, here's a question. Do you honestly think if people are driven by their biochemistry completely, if you had no ability to think freely, if you had no ability to think critically, because really, if you're driven by your biochemistry,
yeah, there is no observer and there's no creator within you.
Right. Then would there be space shuttles?
I was going to use that as the example. We always use that. I mean, think about the level of detail to get into space in 1968 when they went on the moon. I think it was 68.
It was unheard of. Like,
with less power than you have on your cell phone.
Yeah.
Right? You went hundreds of thousands of miles out into space where there's no oxygen. You land on a fucking planet, and then you come back safely. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, and you do it a few times, right? So this is such a, if you don't have an imagination, if you didn't have the positive drive, if you couldn't think of fantasies or goals, or so there's a time and a place. Now, if you go into a drug experience with the same sort of thing that you're looking for, I'm going to trip on acid and have a good trip, and I'm going to go to this show, and I'm going to fucking freak out and dance all night and be crazy and hit on the girls. You will. Now, unless some bad thing happens that you have no control over, a meteor lands in your lap, guess what? It's going to go bad.
Yeah.
But the point is, whatever you go into that drug experience, drinking, if
expectations.
The expectancy result, right? I'm going to go to the bar and try and hook up. So that becomes your goal. And so whatever, or you say, I want to let go of my trauma. Guess what? Then that physical buzz will be interpreted as letting go of your trauma. Now you have a distraction to let go of your trauma. Trauma didn't cause the use. The drug didn't take away the trauma. It was all you.
Yeah.
Playing the game of being a human that has free will, autonomy, and a positive drive. Those rules, those attributes, those inherent realities of your human psyche can never be extinguished. They're just going to be laid out there by however you decide. And you are your mind. You are your decision making. And so you're always in control. So people want to always go to this biochemistry argument. But the problem with that is biochemistry is a chemical. It is not a thought. So there has to be an observer and a creator. And that creator is your free will and your mind. Then you have biochemistry. Then you have neuroplasticity as a result of this mindfulness, this ability, soul, psyche, whatever you want to call it. There has to be an observer. That's you. There has to be some objective thing called a mind, or else the brain can't do anything.
It's exactly right. I want to take a scenario that came up yesterday. I had a session with someone, and it was someone who had been abstinent for a long time in AA, and then left AA, and then about a year later, she left AA, discovered the Freedom Model, got the book, read it, you know, and and decided to go back to drinking, and run those experiments to see how it would go. And so when you read the Freedom Model after you've had a decade of AA, and she also grew up in it like I did and Mark did. I'm sorry, I have a little frog.
Well, we're
And
both getting over
we're
COVID.
still getting
Yeah.
over this COVID. So when you do that and then you start to run the experiments again, and like the thinking is terribly insidious, because if you even have that question, if you still have that question in your mind of, am I in control? Like, can I just have 2 drinks and then no more? But what about so you start kind of getting confused, because you'll have a drink and then you'll have a second drink, and then you'll be like, why do I want another drink? And then you probably, the first few times, you might be like, fuck it. And you get wasted.
Well, what you're describing, though, again, is the lack of mindfulness.
Yes.
You have to take the intellectual part, which is the understanding that in that book, that all the research, you have to study it and say, okay, the drug we know objectively cannot go into the realm of my mind.
Right. It's not going to change my thoughts.
It's not going to go from a molecule form into the metaphysical realm of selective thoughts, or even affect biochemically in your brain select thoughts and make you feel better.
Right.
It can't do that because it's bloodbound. It's all over in your brain. It's affecting all kinds of things in your brain and making you a sloppy mess or making you a hyper mess, right? It doesn't know what you're thinking.
But now I'm going to ask you this. I want you to answer it. Okay. But here you go. You're mindfully experimenting with alcohol. And so you have 2 drinks in quick succession and you feel that nice little buzz. And you're like,
Okay, stop right there. First, if you have 2 drinks in quick succession, what is your motive?
to feel that nice little buzz.
Right. Right. So, and then you have to think, if I'm going for that nice little buzz, is there more to what I'm trying to accomplish? Am I trying to leave and not pay my bills? Am I trying to get the courage to call the hooker? Am I trying to tell my husband to go fuck himself? What am I trying to make?
Or am I just trying to get, I think for many people, it's trying to get that, I just want to relax.
Okay. I want to leave for a little while.
Yep.
Powerful myth, though.
It sure is.
So what that tells me is, you're not ready. You're not ready. You're gonna continue to drink because you believe that alcohol actually will take you away, like Calgon in the 70s, right? I mean, you believe that.
So the goal then of running that experimentation, and this is kind of what we came to, is, okay, to have those couple drinks in quick succession, I'm going to sit with that and really see, okay, I'm interpreting this, and I like the sensation. I like the tickle. I find it pleasant. I'm just going to sit with that and really see if that's enough.
That's right. That's right. Now, you brought up something I think that's really important, and that is, but if you believe in loss of control, don't even do the experiment.
Right.
Don't even do the experiment because you're wasting your time. If you believe in loss of control at all, even a slight vestige that it exists, don't do the experiment because you're going to manifest losing control. Then you will blame the alcohol and you will feel like a failure.
Yes.
Then you have to go all the way back to the beginning in the Freedom Model, go through all the research.
Yeah.
and undo that loss of control myth, Appendix A, Appendix B, get rid of the biochemistry argument, the brain disease, the biohacked brain argument. You got to get rid of all that shit. And you have to go through learned connections, get rid of the idea that trauma, stress, anxiety cause addiction. You need to go through causes versus reasons so you understand the difference. There's so much information. So if you have, but all of it, every piece of it is wrapped up in loss of control.
Yeah.
So when you get rid of loss of control, and you know that I guarantee you'll probably never drink problematically or drug problematically. You'll move on with your life.
Now I have another scenario, okay, that I know that there are people in our groups that are struggling with. Okay, so now I don't drink heavily anymore. And this is interesting because because I had this experience when I first went back to drinking. Not that I was worried I was out of control, but Mark and I, when we started drinking moderately again, we ran different experiments because that's what we're researchers. That's what we do. And we really work to objectively figure this stuff out. And I went through a phase and where I was having a glass or two of wine almost every night. Right. And there is this, and objectively, I'm going to tell you, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are many people that live that way their entire lives and have zero problem with it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. But I remember thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I remember there was still so much of that
fear-based bullshit.
Yes. In my mind, that I had to reevaluate my beliefs about everything, even though I had been abstinent 20 years, even though I wasn't drinking to excess, but there was still this, and the truth of the matter was I would go, a couple weeks and I would have a glass or two of wine every night. And then I would go a couple weeks with no wine. And I kind of went back and forth because I was trying to figure it out. Like, my goal, and ultimately your goal, I think, with the freedom model is to have it be a non-issue.
Yeah.
Not feel guilty if I go through a phase where I decide I want to have a glass of wine every night. Who gives a shit? Who cares? If I go through a phase where once a week I like to tie one on, who cares? As long as I'm safe about it.
There's a couple of things that you mentioned, but I want to say something to the audience. So some of you on the group and in correspondence with us have said to me and Michelle, that you ask all these questions,
which is awesome.
It is awesome. But then I say, have you read the book? Well, I just started it, or I'm listening to the podcasts. If you're struggling and you're listening to the podcast and you're perusing through the book and you're struggling, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Stop playing games with yourself because, and this, I'm going to say it. Because I've been doing this for 34 years. This isn't the sort of thing that you can do halfway because you don't drink and drug halfway. So the mythology that you've invested in is so dramatic and thorough in a diabolically bad way that if you're struggling because you can't undo it with the knowledge that you're getting at this stage. So don't fuck around.
That's a good point.
Read the book, study it. If you're not a reader, get the audiobook, listen to it 14 times if that's what it takes. If that doesn't work, we have the Freedom Model online program where we teach in tutorials on pre-recorded video, more than 95 videos now. It started with 65. We have 95 videos plus an entire AAD programming series in there. Freedom Model for the Family is in there. I mean, there's so much. There's live Q&As we do. There's a newsletter. There's all this stuff. We built that for the people like me and like her who needed a hell of a lot more deprogramming than the average Joe that had 6 beers a night for a year.
Right.
Okay. So, and then you may do that and you may be so steeped and so deeply screwed up with the mythology, like I was, like she was, that you need a person to talk to. Then you have coaching. We provide every single service to get you to the place to where we can undo this well-entrenched, diabolically bad mythology. So, but don't play games. If you're struggling and you're just watching the podcast expecting things to change or some light bulb to go on, I think the podcast is great. I think the book is great. I think the FMOP is great, online program.
I think our videos on YouTube are great.
Right.
I think our videos on TikTok are great.
And there are now literally tens of thousands of people that contact us yearly that say it changed my life.
Oh yeah.
But we have a lot more people, to be honest, more than 25,000 who have come through our retreats, talked with us, spent time with us, done coaching, and they needed more. So just identify what you need.
Yeah.
And don't play the game of wasting 2-3 years listening to a podcast and feeling like a failure, thinking this should be easy, because for some of us it wasn't. But for many people, it is.
I want to tell you
Depends on
how
the level of mythology.
I want to tell you how not easy it is. We actually had one of our podcast listeners in our group talk about something that I said in a podcast about cannabis. It was I don't know
how easy it is to get off track. Right.
Well, because what I said in the podcast was that cannabis, that experience I had with cannabis, that it made me paranoid. Right? I mean, how insidious is this belief system that the vernacular that we use, I didn't even realize what I was saying when I said it, because what I really meant to say, because I misspoke, but I misspoke based on these mythological beliefs, was that, well, it did increase my heart rate and my heart was racing. And I interpreted that in a negative way. Like, right. I interpreted that as feeling anxious, like super anxious and paranoid. And, you know, when you're in your 50s and your heart starts racing, I mean, I don't know. I was pretty sure at that moment that I was going to die. So so that was the interpretation that I had based on the physical effects that I was feeling. Now, I have since that time had experiences with cannabis that weren't that way. Okay. So my interpretation has changed, which is really how much control you really do have in interpreting the physical effects you're getting from substances.
Well, it's all an interpretation, right?
Yes.
The physical effects are relatively consistent. You know, if you're drunk, you know that if you're driving a car, you're not going to drive as well as you could, right?
Right.
So
reaction time slowed.
Right.
Your neurological processes slow down.
Yeah. So the physical ramifications of drugs are relative. I say relatively because some people's biochemistry works differently, and their metabolism works differently, especially with amphetamines. But the point is how is it possible that one molecule, whether it's meth or whatever class of drugs you're taking, can have infinitely varied behavior behind it, you know?
Right.
And that's when we start to realize that it's human beings making decisions while their bodies are under the influence. Their bodies are under the influence of the drug, not their psyche, not their emotions. That's all us interpreting it. But I just want to say it's really important that, and I want to end on this. It's really important if you're struggling, take the freedom model to the next level. We built this step up in intensity of lessons for a reason.
We did. And recognize your progress. Okay. Because this question is,
be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. This question is it normal? Is it normal to go back to the previous style of usage, even in little spits? You know what I mean? Like,
it can be.
But there are a lot of
people they don't.
But look at it as a process of learning. Okay, of learning, and be mindful when you're doing it. Be mindful when you're doing it. Challenge what you think you're getting. Remember that question that I always say, if you come to, you know, a day where you have a bad day and you're like, I'm just going to get drunk. Stop. Be mindful. Think, what if I don't get drunk tonight? Can I be happier if I don't get drunk tonight? Am I going to get from alcohol what I think I want, what I think I need from it? Am I going to get from benzodiazepines or whatever?
And then if you still struggle because you have this internal dialogue that's really painful almost, and well, then you need more study.
Yeah.
You need more study of the research to undo that framework. You need to dismantle the construct of mythology.
Yes.
That's how I want you to imagine this cage run. You're dismantling it so you can be free.
The disco ball.
Yeah.
Remember the disco ball?
Right,
Smash that sucker.
You're taking all those little glass shiny object in your mind, that construct, and you're dismantling it so that you can be free.
Yeah.
So just be honest with yourself. Now, the last thing I want to say is, in the book, we talk about it being easy, and people think we're being dismissive. It's easy once you have this emotional, once you internalize the information, you take it from intellect, you make it an emotional thing where you're like, I get it.
Yes.
And my positive drive is going to move in that direction and I'm going to be free. Then it's easy.
It is.
I mean, I don't do anything for recovery and haven't for, I don't know, 30 years.
Me neither. It's a non-issue.
It's a non-issue. You'll get there. You'll get there.
For sure.
You just got to do what it takes to get there. And you need to know what style of freedom model product you need.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is going to come out right before St. Patrick's Day, which is why I got my green on.
Oh. I mean, no, mine's not green.
You kind of a little bit. All right, everybody. Green. So I think our next one is we're interviewing a nice, smart woman from the Doctor Patient Forum,
talking about opiate prohibition, which is happening
even for people that need opiates for pain.
That's right. So slowly our country is taking pain pills away from people that need them and putting people on Suboxone. There's a huge push by the government to do this, and we want to talk about the tragedy of that.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Take care. If we lose this one, I'll be pissed.
Yeah, that one was wicked good. Wicked good. It was like we're on. We're back on. Although, what is happening?
Don't touch. Let it run. Walk away.
All right. It did it. Oh, wait a minute. Having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. We want to send you a free copy of our revolutionary book, The Freedom Model for Addictions. To help us bring this incredible gift to you, we ask that you pay a small fee for shipping. Learn how tens of thousands of people have permanently solved their addictions without steps or meetings, and make 2023 your best year yet. Give yourself or someone you love the gift of total freedom from addiction. Click on the link to get your free copy sent to you today. Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? Well, that's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.